So, welcome to this event this afternoon, hosted by ARC. We are the Anti-Racist Conversations Group, and we're really delighted that you have chosen to participate with us this afternoon. And I'm Evelyn. For those who don't know me, I'm one of the founders and organizers of this Anti-Racist Conversations Group. We do have a few guidelines that we would like for you guys to follow very strictly for the purpose of our meeting this afternoon. So, during this event, please do not post any links, any comments, or any questions in the chat. You will have a brief amount of time, possibly at the end of this event, for those kinds of information sharings. And also, I would like for you guys to remain on mute. You will have time to respond to the questions, and you're actually going to come off mute at that time. So please remain on mute. Do not post any links, comments, or chat, other information in the chat because it's kind of distracting, and we're going to stay on focus for our event today. Like I said earlier, a few minutes ago, this is going to be a lot about repetition this afternoon. So we're very pleased that you have chosen to join us and journey with us into Eyes on the Foundation of the Civil Rights Era. We're going to be exploring the connection, the links between spiritual gospel music, faith, and the pursuit of justice. And for some of you guys, that might be a new venture, but it's okay. We're all here as learners, right? So, as participants, you will have the opportunity to engage in the experiences through listening to spoken facts, listening to a little bit of music, and writing responses based on what you hear. Two of the critical yet often overlooked foundations of the civil rights era, which continues to influence the contemporary movements, are spiritual gospel music and the African American church, which encompasses the faith journey of African Americans. While discussions surrounding the church may evoke contentions, it remains foundational for African Americans nonetheless. So, my goal this afternoon is to share insights derived from my experiences, some historical facts, and the core belief that guides my faith, which are directly connected to the African American church, spirituals, and gospel music. So, as I reminisce about my time in the African American church, I can wholeheartedly affirm that it felt like a tight knit family that truly shared with and cared for other people. So, like participating in Sunday school, and this might be a foreign language to you guys, but just, go along with me for this just for a few minutes. Participating in Sunday school, attending both morning and evening services, engaging in Baptist Training Union, we called it BTU, and joining Wednesday night prayer services, Bible study, and singing in the choir was truly an enlightening experience for me. So, what you're hearing is part of my story. The African American church served as a cherished gathering for almost everyone. I can see it now as I'm talking. The people who were there just happy, really glad to be there. So I flourished in the Christian community where everyone was familiar with everybody else. Adults took time and active interest, not just in my academic and social upbringing, but in all the other young people too. For example, my school teachers and my parents' friends were all part of the same church. So we knew each other pretty intimately. Um, if you've been around for a period of time, you've heard me talk about and underscore the connection between the church, the community, and the school during the civil rights era. There was no disconnect in those three entities. That's a major part of my lived experiences and my story. So today, my goal is to begin and give you, I want you to listen to some keywords to begin and give you a taste of the flavor of what it was like for my culture, my people, before we began meeting in buildings, in the rooms of the African American churches where I grew up, before the civil rights era. It's very important to understand the foundation, and that's going to be a key word for this whole entire event today. Foundation. It's not just what happened during the protest of the civil rights era, because every movement has a foundational beginning, right? So I grew up around storytellers, and one of my best favorite storytellers was my grandmother. It was how information was shared on many occasions. The stories were very repetitive. I remember telling my mom on so many occasions, "You've already shared that with me." And guess what? Today, my daughter can repeat my stories. And she said, "Mom, you've already shared that." I'm thinking, okay, I know I did. I think it was on purpose though, because I want you to remember what I'm saying here. So I'm thankful for what I learned along the way, and repetition played a part in that because not everything was written down. So here's one more aspect of my growing up in the church, growing up in the African American church. And this is what I could expect to hear every single Sunday from someone, usually an older person, no matter what time of the day it was on Sunday, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, even on a Wednesday night. Someone would come in and they always had a testimony, but it's almost like they wanted to make sure we understood and that we would not let go of what they have experienced and how everything was working in their lives. So this is what I would hear every single time. They would say, and I'm quoting, first, giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, I'd like to say, I'm glad to be in the house of the Lord one more time because he brought me from a mighty long way. I could have been dead, sleeping in my grave. I'm glad he's water in dry places. He's a rock in a weary land. My God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. He's a bridge over troubled waters. He's a mother to the motherless and father to the fatherless, a doctor in the sick room, a lawyer in the courtroom. He's a lily of the valley, a bright morning star. And then they would end it by saying, pray for me that I may grow stronger in the Lord. I remember hearing that so many times, like it's a reflection now. So during that time period, remember, I've already used the word storyteller. My grandmother was one of the best. It was very, very prevalent, and so was dictation. Some folks wrote down what was being said, but mainly it was storytelling. So today we're going to use both so that your knowledge and your experiences are deepened by this gathering. I don't want you to sit here and kind of like be active. You're going to be active listeners, but I want you to be able to take something away with you. That's just a teacher in me that says that. I want to make sure you understand the process of how we got to where we are today, how the civil rights movement actually evolved, it didn't just happen like in a vacuum. There's other things that brought us to this point. So be prepared to take notes and share what you see visually, hear, what you can, maybe you would like to have touched, and maybe what you smell, what you taste, whatever. If you can't use all those senses, that's okay. I want you to use the ones that you can, and we'll talk about that later. Also, vocabulary is incredibly important to understanding what took place. So take notes of any words that capture your attention. And I might, as I'm telling my story here, I might actually give you words, emphasize words that are incredibly important. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready? Dictation begins now. You can take notes on whatever you want to take notes on, whatever is important to you. So the foundation of the African American church, which became the foundation of the civil rights era, was organized during the era of slavery, serving as both a sanctuary and for resistance and a spiritual refuge. I'm going to repeat that. It's very important. The foundation of the African American church, which became the foundation of the civil rights era, was organized during the era of slavery, serving both as a sanctuary for resistance and a spiritual refuge. For enslaved African Americans, faith became their source of hope, fostering a sense of community and providing means to resist the reality that they found themselves in, because they were considered just a piece of property. So secret gatherings, often referred to as invisible churches. Secret gatherings, often referred to as invisible churches, enabled my people to worship freely and share their stories of oppression. Enslaved individuals convened in secrecy, away from the watchful eye of their enslavers, in locations known as hush harbors or invisible churches. The invisible churches or the hush harbors gatherings were often led by preachers chosen by the enslaved people themselves rather than appointed by the slave owners. Then singing deep, felt spiritual songs of anguish led loud weeping, shouting, and praying. The songs of anguish and cries to God created in the invisible churches became a continuous That's a very important word. A continuous part of organizational foundation that led to the civil rights era. The invisible churches emerged as a formidable force of resistance. The invisible church emerged as a formidable force of resistance, empowering enslaved individuals and actively challenging the entrenched power structure of slavery. The religious practices of enslaved African Americans observed in these gatherings diverged from those endorsed by white churches, as they did not emphasize submission to masters. Following emancipation, the Hush Harbor churches, which had once been invisible, evolved into influential Black churches that played a pivotal role in shaping African American identity and resisting white supremacy. During the Reconstruction era, Black churches emerged as vital advocates for the rights of political participation of African Americans. African American churches have historically functioned as the sole institution fully managed by Black communities, providing a crucial platform for organizing voter registration initiatives, pursuing public office, and advocating for civil rights. And finally, for this part, these churches have played a significant role in advancing education by establishing schools and colleges such as Howard University and Fisk University. There are a lot more, often in conjunction with religious activities. So I'm going to stop there now, and then we're going to talk. It was kind of fast, I know, but I'm hoping you were able to document some of the things that were very important to you. So this is my first question, and I'll recognize your hands because we're a very small group today. I'll recognize your hand. What did you visualize? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you want to touch? What did you want to smell? What did you taste? What did you want to taste? And, maybe that doesn't even apply. But let's talk now. Not everybody at the same time. So Janae, are you off mute?
Yes.
Okay, go take it. And if you can keep your comments at least for maybe like 75 seconds, a minute and 15 seconds, be good.
Actually, that was many lifetimes conveyed in one little minute. And I saw so many people, and I heard crickets, and I felt the night in the cool and the hushedness. And then I felt the lament way deep in my chest. And now I'm getting shivers. But how important that is. Oh my God, that's the big takeaway for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne. I'll give you the instructions in just a second. Anyone else? Then I'll ask a question, okay? In what ways, based on what you just heard, in what ways did the invisible hush harbors, the secret gatherings, where do you visualize they took place? Where do you visualize they took place? Because this is slavery. Okay, John.
Either in the slave quarters or in the fields or whatever in surrounding the slave quarters, somewhere where they were not expected to be interrupted by the masters or their henchmen.
Perfect response. Thank you. Anyone else want to respond to that question? Where do you visualize that these meetings, these invisible churches, these hush harbors took place?
Somewhere not on the property itself, but I mean, I know that they can't leave it, but some place that is not.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, Beth.
There's lots of deep grass. I'm sorry, there's a lot of wind here today. That's what's causing it.
Okay.
I use the Wi-Fi at the marina and it's very windy today. So,
Okay. Okay. It's okay. If you can just do your best to respond to the question, we'll try to hear you.
okay. Um, Out in some area that couldn't be, where the trees couldn't be cut down and the plants couldn't be, some area that was left
Okay.
natural, like a swamp.
Yeah.
Being.
Okay, well, thank you for that response. I'm going to go into the next question. And the next question is, in what ways did these religious assemblies, these meetings and this secret hush harbor allow the enslaved individuals to preserve their humanity and a dignity of, in the midst of a dignity, in the midst of a system that was trying to strip them of their dignity? In what ways did these religious assemblies, these gathering in the hush harbors in these invisible churches, allow the slaves to preserve their humanity and their dignity in the midst of a system designed basically to strip away both?
Um, Hi. I think it gave them validation. See, whenever you have a safe space for your voice to be heard, that gives you validation. So I think that's what it served. And yeah, validation.
All right, that's that. All you guys have great responses. Thank you for that, Suzanne. And so I'm going to move on to the next question because I want to make sure we stay on time and everybody has unless someone else has a response to this question.
I have
Okay,
one
Andrea,
quick
okay.
thing.
Uh-huh.
I like the quote that you said that their churches did not emphasize submission. So it was them empowering themselves and each other, and they focused on building something where there was no submission whatsoever.
Perfect. Love that. Yep. So here's the next question. How did the Black church cultivate a sense of community? A lot of these questions are going to be overlapping and might sound a bit repetitive to what I've already asked or will be asking. But how did the Black church, based on what you just heard, cultivate a sense of community and collective identity among those frequently separated from their families and cultural heritage? And a lot of this you're going to have to infer. I'll repeat that question. How did the Black church cultivate a sense of community and collective identity among those frequently separated from families and cultural heritage? Janae, I see your hand is up.
Yes. I think the shared stories, like you said, it was the storytelling and that were repeated. So I'm assuming people shared those stories. I love the thing that prelude to the testimony was gorgeous. It just made my heart sing. So if that was consistent in that, so there was, also the older people kind of taking the younger people under their wing and making sure that they knew about the community, what the community was, what their real purpose was in life, not what was, foisted upon them. Getting a sense of their past and their future.
Perfect. Now, I must say, you just sparked a thought in my mind because not everyone in the community was so like nice and and everybody that's my age or was in the community with me, they will always remember this lady. Her name was Miss Bessie. Miss Bessie was like she was the reporter to everyone's parents. If we just get one thing off track, Miss Bessie was the messenger. So she was liked, but not as much as the others. And there's a Miss Bessie in everybody's community. Maria.
Mhm.
I was thinking that it had to do with the music side of it, that like they had shared songs that had the meanings behind it. So they were taught the meanings. So when they would hear the songs, they would understand like what was being communicated. And it was using language that was acceptable to their holders, because it was like biblically based, which was taught as like acceptable, but it was like not, the meaning behind it was not what they thought it was. And so I think that's my understanding of it.
I think you're leading in the right direction for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anybody else want to comment on that one? Okay, Janae, And then we're going
Just
to
one
move.
more thing. And
Huh?
Maria basically brought it to mind. There's a code. The words have a code. The way the hair is done has a code. There's all sorts of codes that the people would know about and didn't look like anything on the outside, but it was saying something. Maybe where something was to be held, maybe someone that to go to, but there's a code in the words.
I appreciate that so much, Janae. Thank you. So here's my next question, and John has already alluded to this, but I want to hear you guys' perspective also. And this is an inference. What did you see the invisible church, and what did it look like to you? Did you see the invisible church, and what did it look like to you? We're talking about during slavery. We're not talking about Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia today. What did it look like to you?
It looked like sacred ground. You know, it was just a place out in the woods, you know, that maybe they, you know, made benches to sit on or something, but it was sanctified.
So are you saying they met there often then, Beth,
You know,
if it's sanctified? More than likely they did. More than likely.
well, wherever
on
people
history, they
meet,
did.
who, you know, to worship or help each other is a sacred space.
Love it.
To me.
Thank you. Yep. So here's a question, and this is related to Beth too. And you guys don't know what I wrote, but I'm actually reading what I wrote, and so your responses are leading perfectly into the next question. So I want to ask you, I want you to think about this is slavery. They're in their hush harbors, they're in the invisible churches, but were they standing or sitting, and why? Either way, why? Were the people standing or sitting? Okay, Janae, and then Andrea. Janae, you're next. Were the people standing or sitting? Go ahead and respond, Andrea.
I would imagine that they were, I mean, maybe sitting, depending on where they were meeting for fear of being caught. But going back to the line of emphasizing not submitting, they're probably standing, holding hands, refusing to sit, refusing to submit, refusing to lie down. So.
Yeah, and I'll tell you just for the record, hand holding was a big part of the worship, always a major part of the worship, because that's a sign of unity. All right, so I want you to think about locations of slavery throughout the nation were not always the same. So I want you to think about swamps. If there was going to be worship in an area close to the swamps, where were the people? If there was going to be worship in the woods, where were the people? If they felt secure to worship in cabins, where were the people? Because I think John alluded to the fact earlier that the folks probably they could have been in their quarters, but 9 times out of 10 they were not, because it was too close to the big house. So they likely were not worshiping in unless it was really late at night and the doors were seriously barred. So where do you think if there was worship by the swamps, which there were, where were the people? What state would that kind of yeah,
I'm
what
thinking
state?
South Carolina. I'm thinking you have places here in Georgia, like the Okefenokee Swamp, South Georgia. I'm also thinking when you said swamp, South Carolina and Louisiana came to my mind. Yeah. And so yeah,
Eastern.
yeah, and I
One person at a time.
yeah, so that's what I think.
Represent.
That's what I'm finished.
Yeah, John.
Florida.
Yep. And so what we just
Eastern
did,
shore of Maryland.
yeah, what we just did is we placed slavery all over the place, didn't we? Because that's where it was. It was more prevalent in some areas than others, but I could certainly concur with Louisiana, because that's where my grandmother was from. Definitely Louisiana. I don't know about the other areas, but yeah, history, it will help us understand where those locations were, but we know it was in the South mainly. All right, so here we're going to move on. And what I'd like to do at this time, because I want you guys to get a full education. I'm not going to make it easy for you today. It's just the way I have it planned. I shared this with my daughter a few minutes ago. What we're going to do now is go into some music, and I want you to listen, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the music. Some of you guys already know about this history, but give me a minute here, and I want you to listen on your own to a certain song. Give me a minute, please. All right. This song is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And you'll have to pull it up on your devices. And it's in the chat now. Just open the link and pull it up on your device. It's only about 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And then we'll talk about that. You guys can look up when you're about finished. I know maybe it's not over yet, but you should be close, I think. Are we finished? How are you doing, Janae? Okay. All right, so I'll move on then if you guys are ready. All right. So before I go into talking about that song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, I want to give you just a little bit more information and then we'll talk about that song, okay? So my early education was in segregated schools in the South, Southwest. And much of what I'll share in the next section, I learned at home to begin with, at school, and at church. It was all connected. So what I'm doing with sharing you guys this information is guiding us closer to the civil rights era, guiding us closer to the Montgomery bus boycott. Closer. It had to be a foundation first because the Montgomery bus boycott didn't just happen because people, were just disenfranchised or whatever. That's part of it. But the main part of it is going all the way back to how people organized to begin with. So let's prepare for a little bit more information about music in these invisible churches. Um, and I think Janae has already alluded to, maybe Janae and Maria have already alluded to a little bit of it, but I want to give you just a nudge, enough to just like whet your appetite and hopefully give you enough to want to learn on your own, because you can only do so much in an hour and 30 minutes, but because the history is so broad, but it's so important also. So, songs performed in invisible churches were like secret worship gatherings in the hush harbor, but they played a vital role in the cultural and spiritual resilience, very important word, resilience of enslaved individuals in their pursuit of justice. And I want you to think about resilience and the pursuit of justice as we're getting closer to talking about the civil rights era. It won't happen today, but I want you to think about those words: pursuit of justice, resilience, as from African Americans. Early church hush harbors frequently incorporated the practice of shouting. I don't know if you understand what that means or not. I mean, I saw it as a kid. Singing, hand clapping, a lot of call and response within the church that I grew up in. I saw it every single time I worshiped. So those melodies, those songs contained concealed messages about the Underground Railroad, or conveyed a profound desire for freedom. No, they're known as Negro spirituals. Well, I learned that at home. I learned that at the segregated school. I learned that in the Black church. And here we go. Let's talk about this. The song Still Away to Jesus. It's a song that was used to signal secret meetings. It wasn't just like still away. We're not, because Jesus is always there, but we're not going to be in his presence. It has another meaning, a deeper meaning. And then there's this song, Wade in the Water. It instructed escapees, the runaway slaves, how to travel, where to travel, so that they would not be followed. They could hide their scent from the tracking dogs. Bottom line, they could hide their scent in the water from the tracking dogs. And then Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, function also as a signal indicating the presence of a conductor from the Underground Railroad who was available to guide them to freedom, as suggested by Carry Me Home. And where was home? From the south to the north mainly, or at least a safer place in another area to where all the atrocities of slave mastering was going to be done with. And then there's this one song that's not talked about a lot, but it's called Follow the Drinking Gourd. And I remember when I was a kid too, living in Texas, gourds were all over the place, all different sizes. You know, I remember my grandmother, who was part of Choctaw, she would cut the gourd open and take out whatever was in there. And we actually used that as a dipper to drink water. Yep. So this song offered coded, I think Janae or someone mentioned coded earlier. This song offered coded guidance for an escape route. The drinking gourd represented the Big Dipper, the constellations, who directed one northward. And this I learned, first of all, from my grandmother. I would sit on the porch with her almost every night in summertime because she loved being outside. And she's the one who taught me how to identify the constellations, how to identify the Big Dipper. This is my grandmother, who was part Choctaw, and she had an incredible grasp on things connected with nature. And then in the schools, we talked about this. In the church, we talked about this because it all related back to the Bible. And then there's Go Down Moses. And if you know anything about this song, it's often linked to Harriet Tubman. But the song tells of Moses freeing the Israelites from Egyptian slavery in the Bible. Here Moses symbolizes an escaped leader, whereas Pharaoh in that same story, it kind of denotes the slaveholders. So spirituals blended African-American musical tradition with Christian themes, and employing a repetition and a call and response structure. And that still happens in a lot of churches too. You know, there's if I would go to an African American church today, which I really did this morning online, and I was just amazed to see that there's still a lot of call and response. People are standing, you know, they don't have to stand. They're lifting their hands, they're praising, you know, just saw that this morning online. Um, but anyway, the lyrics to these songs were deeply rooted in the Old Testament, the narratives of deliverance, like Exodus, and resonating that the enslaved people, they're longing for freedom. They're longing for freedom. So these songs not only facilitated the sharing of practical information, but also offered a sense of hope and peace and emotional expression. It kind of nurtured them in the sense of community because everybody is going through the same kind of struggle. But you know what? The focus was not on the struggle. It was on what could they do? What is this God from the Bible going to do from them? That's what I heard growing up. And that goes all the way back to slavery. So these musical styles are vital to the Black culture, serving as powerful expressions of faith and hope and resilience in our pursuit of justice. And yes, it's still ongoing, but there's no stopping though. So these styles of worship were crucial to preserving, or I should say, are crucial to preserving both spiritual and cultural identity. So when I say that, I want you to think about the Montgomery bus boycott. I want you to think about the civil rights era. These styles of worship were crucial to preserving both spiritual and cultural identity. It's like the word resilience is written all around us. It encircles us. So that was a lot of information. I won't ask you to respond to that. That was a lot, and I did that on purpose. But what I will ask you to stop and focus on, though, is a song that you just listened to, and I have a few questions I want to ask you about that. So take your time and just, you know, look at your notes if you need to. Or if you have a comment that you'd like to make about what I just shared about the music, you're welcome to do that. But I'll give you just a few minutes to look to check your notes. Maria, you looked up, you almost looks like you have something to say.
I just love the word resilient. Like my band is actually Stars Resilient because this whole meaning. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, you know, teachers, whenever the student looks up, we know that you have something to say. So I'm looking at you as a teacher, Maria. Teacher to
That's what I
teacher.
was thinking about.
You looked up. Yeah. Great. Anyone else want to have a comment on anything before I ask you the questions about the song? What did you hear? Okay, then no questions. My goal today is not to make it a personal thing to where it's all about you or all about me, but it's about history and the experiences that I had as an African American growing up in my culture. But I will kind of digress a little bit here and ask you about mood, which is going to be more personal to you. So when you listen to that song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, what mood did the song evoke in you? Mood. That's going to be the focus. Mood. Okay, Janae.
Okay. I'm sorry to be such a blabbermouth, but it just, I can't help it. The mood I got from Swing Low, Sweet Chariot was actually kind of the person was excited that was going, but he was having or she was having to leave her folk behind, and it was dangerous. So I got that, not only the hope, but I got the challenge. I got the you're leaving your folks behind. So, and only a few were going. I mean, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, you know, how many people usually go to Sweet Chariot at a time to God, right? One at a time or a couple at a time, unless there's a plane crash or something. So that's what I got.
Okay, thank you for that. So do you guys do you that's what was evoked in her. Anybody else, did you have a different experience and listen to the song? Was it about death or was it about something else?
Yes. probably because I didn't know the whole context. I had to sing this song in college. I started as a voice major, and we sang 10 songs every semester, and they had to be, Italian, opera, German. But we were required to have one, what was called a Negro spiritual. And our instructors insisted that this was a big part of American music and we needed to know it. Okay. But I experienced Swing Low as somber and yet reassured that you were going to die, but it was going to be okay. That you would be taken to a place that was better, and you could be with the other people in your family forever. So that was my interpretation of it. It's not about this life, it's about the next.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Beth. And I think I saw your hand next, Joan. Can you unmute?
There we go.
Here you
Can you
go.
hear me now? I think it
Sure.
should work. Okay.
You're good.
Well, I was in thinking about the codes and how this was their way to sing and know what they were doing and to keep the masters at bay so that they didn't know, what was going on. But the courage that it must have taken to go into, it's like the devil that you know versus the unknown out there. So it had to be kind of frightening, and courageous, and here we go. What's going to happen next? So I can't even, it just makes me really sad thinking about this. I can't even imagine how that would have been to live under that kind of circumstance. I just can't even imagine, and
So basically what I'm hearing for you then, from you, Joan, is that it wasn't about death. Is that what you're saying? But it was about moving to a different location?
right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. John.
Yeah, my mood was mournful. Is a term, my word that came to my mind. And the pictures that were on the recording there, with all the brutality and the scars and the brutality being administered, crossed my mind how brought to the current of trying to scrub education to take that out of our history. And to say that how can you possibly think that people that were in that scenario were patiently enduring? They were being brutalized, and that needs to be taught. And so I went for mournfulness of the song and the look to the other life, because I didn't realize the code. I just looked at it as mournful resilience. You're looking to the afterlife for ultimately you will be raised up in that afterlife, despite what's happening to you in the present brutality. And I flip it to say, how can you how can you in justice erase those images, erase that history? So,
Thank you for that. That's very, very powerful and very encouraging for me that would be a perspective that you got, a mood that you saw, felt. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, one more comment, Danae, then we'll move to the next part.
Okay, I know this isn't a discussion group, but I think that with the spirituals, there's also a transformation of persons. I know that Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and I listened to, I had a hard time coming back. And I think that there was kind of a hypnotic quality to a lot of the songs. So you had to be grounded in reality, but there was also something that kind of readied you for something different. And you were transformed.
Wow.
Like African music too. I mean, it transformed you, but that's it. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So in this song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, is it considered just from your knowledge of it, is it considered a call and response, or is it offering a signal, or is it a biblical context?
You said is it a
You
call?
might not know. You might not know.
Okay,
And it's okay if you don't know.
I would
okay.
say a
What do you think, Suzanne?
biblical.
Oh, so you say biblical? I thought it was a signal because it's like if I would say let me use Harriet Tubman because there were other people who were also freeing slaves, but she's the one that is known.
Mhm.
Swing Low Sweet Chariot, you sing that it's like you're thinking about a chariot was a chariot to transport. So that was a signal, you know. And I think it was also it gives me that song, even though it sounds very not sad, but very hopeful,
Mhm.
looking towards the future, an afterlife. And that was it too, afterlife.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's going to be from the biblical perspective, and if it's going to be an afterlife. And if you can remember, the folks have already gathered in these invisible churches. They've already gathered in the hush harbors, and they're not just talking about their desire to be free. They are talking about their desire to be free, but they're also connecting their experiences with biblical experiences. So it's
Right.
directly connected. And so I think that's the great importance that we miss in movements like we're a part of now. We miss, especially when it comes to African Americans, we miss that important link that for us, it started in the church. And I know people are sometimes offended by that. And all I would say to that offense is read history. Because they might want to erase it, but it's still there. History is still there. If you look for it, you're gonna see that that's the connection. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I think it was 2021. I had a chance to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and I got a chance to canvas. And I'm not a canvasser. I got a chance to canvas for Reverend Warnock. And then I got a chance to attend Ebenezer Baptist Church. And he told the story, and I don't want to go into it too in depth here, about the fact of what people said about him not winning. And this, I'll never forget what he said. But they didn't understand the power of our prayers. And he won. It goes all the way back to slavery, that mentality, all the way back. So the connection for us will never be a disconnect. There's going to be organizational aspects of what we do that are not directly connected with the church. But, if you look at the whole history of it, that's where we started. Yeah. So, what inspiration did this song offer to African Americans? And maybe you've already said it. If you want to expound on that a bit more, but that's okay. But what inspiration? Okay, Maria.
The line, if you get there, well, I'm looking at the actual lyrics. If you get back to heaven before I do, I was always stood heaven as like free. Um, Tell your friends I'll be coming after you. Like if I get there before you do, or if you get there, like come back and come get more people. That's kind of how I've heard that lyric or those lyrics. And so it was kind of like the message of hope, like we'll be back. Like we'll keep coming back until we get everybody out.
And it goes back to what Suzanne said about Harriet Tubman. That was her strategy. She
Hmm.
took a few at a time, but she's known for taking a whole bunch. And the thing about it is, she kept going back. She kept going back. But that was that's what I learned also in school. That was the main emphasis that was placed on that song. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, there's also the element, with a chariot coming for you, the masters can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
going to go to heaven, and you can rest assured in that. And even if you don't make it out, you will go. That had to be really reassuring to people that if they couldn't find freedom in this life, at least they would know it in the afterlife.
Exactly. And this is in conjunction with what you just said, Beth. This is what I wrote down as part of my sharing with you guys today. Singing this song was an act of hope a powerful assurance that God would ultimately deliver them from the suffering, whether on earth or in heaven. That's what I wrote down. Yeah. And that's what the people believe. So knowing that the spirituals were often code songs, songs of escape, do you think that there are any other hidden messages in this song? And I think someone has already talked about the chariot. What does I would say, based on your knowledge of any part of this history, what does a chariot symbolize for you in your educational knowledge, Maria?
It's the train.
Okay. Anything else from anybody else?
It could be a wagon
Mhm.
Okay.
pulled
When
by
you say,
horses.
when you say the train, Maria, exactly what are you talking about?
Um, like the literal Underground Railroad and like the passageways and like the safe passageways are along the way. Also the lines like I saw a band of angels coming after me. Like I saw the people that were there to lead the way.
Mm-hmm.
They were the angels.
Yep. And that it definitely was the Underground Railroad. Yeah. And so I'm looking at this group today, and it's been like this since the beginning. The majority of the attendees are not African Americans or people of color. The majority of the attendees for our ARC events have always been white people. And I applaud that, because when I look at the Underground Railroad, maybe there were some African Americans, but I doubt it, who were part of that Underground Railroad as far as housing and hiding people. It was the majority were white people. So there's always that connection that when we talk about white supremacy, not everyone is in that category. And I want to make that clear. Not everyone is in that category. There are really people who care deeply about the souls of people. Otherwise the history of the Underground Railroad would have just not happened. But yeah, there were others outside of the African American culture that cared about African American people. Okay, so this song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, it was written, I believe, during the 19th century as a spiritual to express, and I'm being repetitive here, to express the hope of deliverance from this earthly suffering. And it uses coded language to speak of the freedom that we could experience here through the Underground Railroad and hopefully in heaven also. That was the bottom line of it. Maria, do you have another question or comment?
I was just gonna mention you talked about like other people. Like I learned a lot about like Quakerism and like one of the principles is like not lying. And so when people would come to them to ask, do you have any slaves here? They could honestly answer, there are no slaves here, because they had a firm belief like all people are equal and there is no such thing as a slave. Like, no.
Yeah.
So they could answer honestly because they don't believe in slavery, that people can be slaves because people are equal. And so they
Oh
were
my
able to
gosh.
answer truthfully and not lie because of that. So I thought that
Okay.
was a really cool thing.
Oh my gosh. It's not, I didn't write that down, but I do have a question for everybody here based on Maria's comment. Think about today, because we're trying to move toward, remember, discussing the civil rights era, and that's going to have to be the next time in December. We'll continue this in December because we don't have time to do it today. Think about that language today. When people are described as what?
Illegal.
Illegal. It's up to us to change the rhetoric. It's up to us to change the vocabulary. Remember I said earlier, vocabulary is very important. And if we choose to use the same vocabulary as the opposition, we're not helping the people who are already entangled in and bind by disenfranchisement. How do we, it's up to us. How do we change that? How do we use what Maria just talked about?
Hello, this is Lena.
Okay.
In every conversation, in every situation, if you hear somebody using that word, you have to be willing and courageous to speak up and give them the word that they should be using. And granted, it's always easier to say that than to actually do it, but just be more mindful of the people that you're congregating with or around and how they're speaking to one another, how they're speaking when they think that somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, but in actuality, you do know. So just be present and speak up.
Okay, John, thank you, Lena. And I might come back to you because I want to take it a little bit further because what you said was spot on. John.
I don't know if I'm, quote, using the right term, because I've never asked the question, but I've always just said they don't have documentation or they don't have official papers. But then I've always challenged, or not challenged, if that's too strong. I've always corrected people when they've said illegal. I said they're no more illegal than my grandparents were when they came to this country, or virtually everybody, maybe your grandma, Evelyn, that came to this country, that they were all came in different systems at different times, and we're coming here as immigrants at some point. So 95+% of this country was an immigrant at some point. And so I just point that out. And then if they want to go argue with me, in some sense, I've read some of this history and I know the history, but usually people don't argue. They just stop and they don't call them illegals again in my presence.
Yeah, okay, got it. So back to Lena. Suzanne, you had something to say before I go to Lena. Okay, so back to Lena. Let's look at, are you there, Lena? Yeah, so I want to just kind of like, for you to expound on what you have said, maybe like in a scenario. Because sometimes we really don't know what to say. And I'm not saying that this to be accurate. This is a scenario. Let's say, for example, we don't know what to say. And so I will use myself, and I have said, oh my gosh, all those illegals around me, I'm just not sure what to do. So I would like to pick on Maria and Lena to kind of bring together what we could do in kind words, because they're looking for reactionary words and we don't have to use those. But we can use kind words all the time because we're talking about people. So we don't have to, and we don't have to be so defensive about it either. We can just let them know. Take a look at me. How could you guys like develop a real quick scenario, putting you on the spot here, to bring life to what Lena said?
Well,
so Lena, can you kind of like repeat what you said, and then
well, even like me moving from where I was in the state to where I'm currently living in the state, like I'm in a red county, no ifs, ands, buts about it. And so like, again, in common conversation, you may hear someone say, oh, all these illegals are taking all the jobs from us. I can't find work and I'm mad they need to go back to where they came from. Not thinking that just because somebody looks different from you doesn't mean they're from a different country. They could have been born in the next county over. So again, just bringing it to their forefront, like right there, like, no, not trying to be downplaying or harmful or anything like that, but just think about what you say before you say it. Or like, again, ask them, where did your where did your great-grandparents live? Or where did they come from? Because last time, I checked, you don't look like Native American. So if that's the case, we're all illegal and we're all here. We all need to go back to somewhere else, right? I like to use a little bit of humor, or like, did you really just say that out your mouth kind of thing? Like, listen to what you just said.
Okay, so Maria, take it from there.
So I like to say that people cannot be illegal, that they might be undocumented, and the documentation process in this country is actually really difficult. And there are people who are being detained and deported while they're going to their court hearings in order to make sure that their documentation stays effective and active and extended. And so we're actually stripping people's rights away so that they cannot stay documented in order to follow this legal process that you are so adamant about everybody following. So we need to make sure we are not saying like people are not illegal. They are undocumented, and the process for obtaining documentation for their citizen status or their legal status or their visitor status is becoming increasingly difficult. So we need to be careful about that. Like, you can't assume. Also, the whole idea that like illegal citizens or undocumented people are taking like SNAP benefits and things like that. They don't have access to it. They pay into it, but they can't reap the benefits of it. They're paying their taxes. So if you take away their ability to work, you're not really concerned about people paying taxes because they do pay taxes. You're not really worried about like people keeping SNAP benefits because they're not accessing SNAP benefits. Like they don't have access to that. You have to be a citizen. You have to have certain documentation in order to have that. And if you're undocumented, you don't have access to that. So kind of a moot point.
Yeah. So I just want to show you what we just did. We're talking about the civil rights era. We're talking about African Americans. We're talking about music in the African American church. We're talking about the connection between spiritual gospel music, faith, and the pursuit of justice. How does that fit into what we're talking about? How does what Lena and Maria fit into what we're talking about today? Suzanne.
I think it's about the quest of the American dream, about making the Constitution, this American experiment, real. That all men are created equal. We all have the right for our pursuit of justice and happiness. I think that's where it ties into just this the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of the American experiment being real, which is in jeopardy now, but being real and being all inclusive. Now, I'm gonna say this is African American. I'm probably like maybe sixth or seventh generation here. I have a problem with people say, we're all immigrants. No, my people were not immigrants. My people came here enslaved. I mean, the earliest answer is 1810. Enslaved. She was born here, so I'm assuming it was her parents or grandparents because she was born in Virginia, so Virginia has a long history. So my thing is, especially to people to Black people who act like, oh, they need to go back. I'm like, where is your humanity? Where is your compassion? We were treated like this, talking about the civil rights and slavery. And we don't have a right to talk about, I just feel like people who have been mistreated and oppressed need to be compassionate. That's the way I feel, And when you talk about I don't hear people talk about immigrants because I work in a predominantly Black and Hispanic community. We have some whites, but it's predominantly Black and Hispanic, and my whole environment, because I'm outside and around Atlanta, is Black and Hispanic. So we don't hear immigrants. Now I might have a couple students tease about ICE. I had that happen in the spring, and I got on them because I let them know, and there was a Black child who was teasing about ICE. I said, "Don't you do that?" I said, "Because when they get through with them, we're next." No, I'm an American. I said, "No, no." I said, "This is about race. This is not just about color." And he got real quiet. So I mean, I had to deal with about that. We are not immune from ICE. It's just that the Hispanics are first, and they're coming for us next. And you must also understand that.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing from the three of you, Lena and Suzanne and John and everybody else, is that we have some education that we need to share. We have some informational education that we need to share, and we need to share it boldly. And based on what you guys said today, it's not difficult to share that. It's not, but we have to be bold enough to share it though in the right context with the right language. You don't want to go aggressively toward people because then they're looking for that. But I think we have to share it though. We have to let people know that we're all in this together. And it does go back to, if it happens to me, it's going to happen to you. What are my experiences that I've learned that I can help you? It has to be that. Otherwise, we're going to remain a very divided and segmented nation who have whose goal seems to be just to leave everybody else out. So as long as I'm taking care of myself. And that's not the way I grew up. I grew up in a community where people helped people. And that's my goal. That's my overriding goal. So
Yes. I really think that the political culture right now is, I got mine, F you. It's for those people who think that they have a right to this country because of their characteristics, and we're superior. And that is not Christianity. It is not. And, they need to hear from other folks that this is,
I think she might have
you might think in reality, you aren't, and
Yeah.
you never will be.
Okay, guys, thank you, Beth. It's 1:10, so we have one more thing to do. I want to make sure we get out here on time. And this is a song, and this one is like 5 minutes long. So bear with me. But it's going to be a closure for what we're talking about today. And if you can remember everything we've talked about so far, which was really a lot of information, is that faith was the overriding action. It was the overriding. People did not give up. In spite of the odds, people did not give up. I don't remember, and if you've been around me before, you've heard me say this, during the civil rights era, I don't remember hearing a lot of complaining from people. There was no time to complain. But I did see, even as I look back now in retrospect, I saw a lot of organizing, but I saw the work in the church too. We're out of the invisible churches now. We're into the real church because we're heading toward the civil rights era. So I saw a lot of action, a lot of gathering, a lot of including everybody else that was going to be affected. So I want you to listen to this song and then we'll talk about that and we'll be done for the day. But I do have a call to action for you guys. So here goes. I'm going to share this link with you. Oops. Whoa. There you go. So listen to that song. And then when you're done, we'll have a brief discussion about it. So you guys finished? Yes? Okay. All right. So this is going to be like, you have maybe like another minute or so each. I'm not necessarily going to ask a question initially. I want you to tell me what you heard, what your thoughts were on that song, based on the overall topic of today's meeting. What captured your thinking? What words were there?
Kept hearing like the strength to carry me.
What does that mean though? The strength to carry me, based on what we talked about today.
Like we can do this. We can be resilient. We can be powerful. And like that song and like knowing that others are there is like the strength to like keep going.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I heard first, Maria. I heard strength to carry me is what you said. And then you went directly into we. So you recognize it's enough strength to carry you, but it's also enough strength when we're together, because you went right into we. And I think that has to be the movement that we see. Because in the civil rights era, it did go from maybe from me to we, but it was more directly associated with we, a group of people. So if you have it and you recognize it for yourself, you are going to be the catalyst that's going to share that hope, that resiliency, whatever is needed for the rest of the people. That was a great transition. Thank you. Janae.
I think just I kept hearing in the chorus, faith to carry, to carry, to carry. Not even me, but you need two people for the actual carrying to exist, at least two, if not more. You need the body that's carried and you need the body that carries them. So it's implied over and over and over again. So, and it just covers a lot of stuff that you talked about, like don't give in to retreat, don't give up. You said you never heard people complaining.
Yeah.
Okay. And it says, I don't remember the exact word, but it says something like this won't remain always or something. So like swing on, sweet chariot. Yeah. Like we were talking about previous songs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Anybody else? Well, I wrote down here, and this goes all the way back to those invisible churches, the hush hovers. I can make it according to my faith. It all goes back to that foundation of the civil rights that's leading us to the civil rights era. It's about the faith. Otherwise, the folks would not have been in the streets, being sprayed with water, being attacked by attack dogs. They were already grounded in their faith. That's what carried them. And that's why they could say they would not retreat. Even though the weight of the world in those little small segments were there. The weight of the world was on them, but they would not give in to defeat. And that's where resilience comes in. But you know what, though? This is what I was thinking when I heard this song and going all the way back to the civil rights era. They had to be prepared before they went to the street. There was like over and over meetings, and making sure the folks were ready. They didn't just like have a one-time hour.
Yes.
We're going to have this meeting coming up. We're going to actually go and we're going to have a march tomorrow. Can y'all join us? No, it didn't happen like that. They prepared.
That is
sure everybody was part of the process and understood the cost, because there was going to be a great cost involved. Beth.
Yes. That's what the song Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around is about. They
Exactly. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
They were prepared. And they were going to finish what they started.
Okay, guys, it's 1:21. I promise not to keep you over time, but I do have several calls to action. And this has been on my mind for a long time. I don't typically bring this kind of information to our art group, but it's just been on my mind. And I think it came about when we start talking about toppling the pillars of democracy. You guys have seen those pillars that we need to topple. And then that's what led me to talking about the Montgomery bus boycott. But I'm thinking, but they didn't talk about what the people had to do to get ready for the Montgomery bus boycott. And I think for us as African Americans, as people of color, as supporters, it's important that we understand there was a process beforehand, and that the fight in us as African Americans didn't start during the Civil Rights era. It was way before, in summation. So that's why I kind of like brought it together today, because this is it's so critically important that when you see African Americans women take a pause, we're not out of it. People are asking why weren't they in the streets? Because women behind the scenes, Black women behind the scenes, are preparing. And we don't prepare all the time in your face, in public. We're preparing behind the scenes. And so when we know when we're ready, we know when we're just really weary, and we know when it's time for someone else to experience what we have experienced. So when African American women were not there for, one of the big movements this year, it's like, I understand, because I didn't do it either. I get it. I did not do it, wasn't ready. What, no point in me showing my face, because I wasn't ready. I want to see who's going to show up. A moment in history. What is so interesting to me is that it's unlike the Civil Rights era in some ways, because everybody today is being affected. Everybody. So I'm kind of glad that history is showing us what we need to see. Yeah.
But you know what? I think also it's strategic, and it's kind of funny. We all kind of feel the same way, but we're not talking about it. It's like a spiritual understanding, Black people standing back. Because I think at this point, if we were showing up in the Kings, even though we support it on a spiritual level, a moral level, if we show up in the Kings events in mass, he would have turned it into a racial event.
Right.
So that it would have been, oh, look at it. And see, so when it was all the white people taking to the streets, it's not that we don't support them, we do. But it's I'm just making it plain. They're less likely to fire on white people. They're less likely to be violent. And when they are being violent, and they were against some whites, you cannot say it's because of their color. You can't say it's because they don't belong. You have to look at what the reality is. You are really against what is right. You see what I'm saying? There's no distraction. This is what it is. It's laying bare,
Yeah.
Because I do feel, I'll say in this space, I do feel like Black people are going to be the balm, BALM. When all this, we're gonna be the pace. We're gonna be the glue. We're not going anywhere, but we're gonna have to be part of the healing process
That's
when
right.
this is all said and done, because this is not going to last forever. It's not. It's not sustainable.
Great. Love that, Suzanne. Thank you so much. Janae.
That was beautifully said, Suzanne. I go to a lot of Zoom meetings, and I do participate in this grassroots resistance. And I just want to let you know that this might be a cause for joy, but all the groups I've been to talk about we're not going back. We're not going back to that democracy, because it wasn't democracy for everyone. It was democracy for a very, very few people. And we want this new world to be for all of us, all of us. So, I mean, they know we can't go back.
Yeah. Thank you, Janae. Well, I'm going to share the call to actions for you guys now. Our next meeting in December is going to be it's going to be mainly on the Civil Rights era, because I think we've got enough history today, and I would encourage you guys to study more for yourselves to kind of see how we arrived at the point of the Civil Rights era and even today. But this is one of my big call to actions for you guys, because we talked a lot about music today, right? So I would like for you guys to research Mahalia Jackson, because a lot of people know her music, but they don't know how involved she really was in the Civil Rights era with Martin Luther King Jr. She was there. There's so much information about her. I don't want to give away her story. And the last song that you guys heard was about her story. The song was inspired. It was sang by Lettucey, but that's the Mahalia Jackson song. And then I want you to also be prepared to talk about Aretha Franklin, who was also directly involved with the Civil Rights era. And I want you to be able to tell me, how active were they during the Civil Rights era? And then let's be knowledgeable about the Montgomery bus boycott and its organizational foundation. Be really informed about that. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. I'm going to stop the recording. I really appreciate all your comments. They were rich today, very encouraging. And I just feel so blessed to have that you guys would just hang out today. So thank you so much for that.